think the fear here, and I think you're seeing on the NVIDIA sell-off, is that this is going to be a huge ripple effect. It's going to be harder and harder to get those chips. That's something, even though there's the China piece, it could have a much broader impact across the region. I think bark's worse than the bite. I mean, as someone, in Asia for 2 weeks, I think it's when I get the fears, but I don't think this is something that's really going to be as much of a restrictive factor, despite everything we saw today.
Do you think it's deep-seek concerns that are spurring this next wave, potentially, of regulation? And I guess perhaps just as importantly, has the train already left the station when you look at homegrown chip development in a place like China?
Look, I think DeepSeek, that was a shot across the bow, because I think everyone recognized, okay, they didn't do this in the basement with no chips. And it comes down to, if they use next-gen NVIDIA chips, what does that mean? And I think, look, the broader fear, especially that you see in the Trump administration, is, okay, we got restricted more and more. So I think what you're starting to see from an investor perspective is, okay, what does this mean for NVIDIA? Second derivatives. Is this going to crimp the supply chain? Now, we disagree. I think when it comes to tariffs, we've seen many times, this is one, it's going to have an impact, but I do not believe it's going to have such a pronounced impact. I think it's being factored in here in terms of supply chain. Still 15-to-1 demand to supply, even when it comes to Blackwell.
Well, okay, bark is worse than bite, but still a bark can be pretty bad if it hurts sentiment, right? If it sort of puts a wet blanket on the party, has an impact on valuation. At what point does it start to do that? And do you have to, if you're an AI investor or even NVIDIA investor, have to get less bullish?
Yeah, look, I mean, no doubt you're going through a lot of turbulence here. From a sentiment perspective, you're seeing the stock, then it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. But what I'll tell you is it comes down to just demand. Do we see any changes in spending? That demand's going to continue to be there. And I think it's when there's only one chip in the world that ultimately could fuel this. I get we're going to go through this, but in my opinion, these are opportunities, not the time to run for the hills. I think when you look at it in terms of tech winners, if you look over the years, it's period like this and these white knuckle periods that you own the win.
Investors and experts have been debating the latest events surrounding NVIDIA Corporation, with Gene Munster of Deepwater providing intriguing insights into the company's recent performance. Munster is still confident in NVIDIA's long-term potential, but worries over their margin guidance and the effect of tariffs suggest that things may be bumpy. Ahead, the waters. However, Dan Ives has a different perspective on the tariffs and encourages investors to seize the chance to purchase more NVIDIA stock since a boom is on the horizon. Welcome back to the investing tutorial, everyone. So, what implications does this have for NVIDIA stock? Let's explore that. But first, a big thank you to those of you who've stuck with us this far. Creating these videos takes significant effort and dedication, so if you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts on NVIDIA stock in the comments. Your support truly helps us grow. Now, let's get back to the video.
Shortcut, what to look for when these numbers come out. Guy just mentioned the gross margin number. That's important, but I think what's even more important is that we're going to see two press releases that come out. One, the earnings, and second, a letter from their CFO. In that letter, it will likely be some commentary about what is the demand, how far they're out with the supply-demand equilibrium related to Blackwell. And I suspect that they're going to say we're 4 quarters out, basically through all of 2020, calendar 25. They're going to be essentially sold out of Blackwell. If that language is in there, I think that that is going to be a reassuring comment for AI investors. If they maintain that it's just several quarters out, like she said in last quarter's letter, I think that's going to send kind of a shockwave. So that's probably the piece that I think investors are going to dig most into related to the NVIDIA earnings.
Do you think they address DeepSeek?
Yes, I mean, it's going to come up, and I think that Tim had some comments about, like, these hyperscalers and what they're spending. They will reiterate that, and I think that I just want to emphasize a piece related to DeepSeek relative to what the hyperscalers said. Going into DeepSeek, just before it came out, the hyperscalers were expected to increase their CapEx spend by 20%. in calendar 25. Now it's expected to be just above 40%. That's a meaningful move higher. And so I think that really is important. And I think the substance of that, and we may not see that in how NVIDIA trades on Thursday morning, but I think the substance of this is that the AI hardware trade will last longer than most investors expect, and understand kind of the apprehension about the funk that the AI trade is right now. But if what these hyperscalers are saying is true, companies like NVIDIA should have more upside throughout this year than investors are currently.
As we peel back the layers of this developing story, mentioning Jensen Huang, we delve into the pulse of the market's reaction, where forecasts shape strategic decisions and opinions clash, raising questions about NVIDIA's market dominance and adaptations to an intensifying AI landscape. While Gene Monster's description of great but not extraordinary may seem like a cautious remark, it actually captures the delicate balance. The market was shaken by the news of NVIDIA's recent earnings call. Some investors are clutching their pearls as NVIDIA tries to uphold the company's revised guidance, increasing it by $1 billion rather than the more anticipated couple of billions. To stay informed about the latest developments from NVIDIA and the ever-changing stock market, consider subscribing to our investing tutorial channel. We provide daily updates on significant market shifts and key catalysts, so hit that subscribe button to ensure you never miss crucial information. We'd love to hear your thoughts on NVIDIA stock, so please share your opinions in the comments below. Now let's dive into today's video.
Extraordinary, and that's really what this needs to be. And when you think about extraordinary, you got to beat the whisper on what the raise is. And so the whisper was that they're going to raise by a couple billion. They raised by $1 billion for April. As however you said in the setup, is the margin guidance. They talked about that being a couple percentage below what the street was at, 1% specifically, at 71% versus 72. And when you have a company like this that, of course, the expectations are so high, I think in any normal environment would be down. When you talk about margin pressure, I think it's justification for the stock to probably trade lower on the first trading tomorrow morning U.S. time. I expect it probably to be down, my guess is probably around 5%, because I think that margin really stung. And it was interesting to look at the stock in the after hours trading. It was up a couple percent up until a few minutes to the last question on the call. And the question was related to tariffs, and specifically is, can you get that ramp in margins? Because I mentioned the negative commentary about April margins. They also said that margins would ramp in the back half of the year, back to the mid 70%. So it goes basically go from 70% to 75%. And can you achieve that with the tariffs situation getting more intense? And the answer was, we don't know. It's a fluid environment, and it's not baked into our guidance. And so you quickly saw the stock drop a couple percent. It's kind of faded since then. And so what that tells us, that stock reaction, looking at it in the aftermarket, it really gives insight to what investors are thinking. And what they're thinking, the central question they're asking right now is, can these margins ramp in the back half of the year? And I think that was a little bit in question. One more point that's, I think, critical here is that the setup going into this, one of the central questions, a pressure point, which I would describe it as, was what was the backlog? How long would they be sold out of Blackwell in calendar 25? And last quarter, when they talked about calendar 25, they said it would be several quarters that they'd be sold out of Blackwell. And a lot of investors were focused on, like, what's going to be the new commentary? Are they going to say that it's sold out for the full year of 25? That kind of was the expectation. But they pulled that language from the CFO letter, and surprisingly, no one asked the question on the call. And I think that kind of the absence of that, I think, is also nagging at investors kind of some of their confidence right now. So I just want to highlight, it sounds like I'm really down on NVIDIA, but I just want to highlight that there were some headwinds, but there are also some very positive long-term pieces to it that I think will ultimately, even though the stock trades off tomorrow, cause the stock.
NVIDIA's decline creates opportunities for other chip makers and AI sectors, igniting interest in how these players might profit. Monster's prediction that NVIDIA will return to impressive upsides by 2026 depends on this very digital rise. In fact, the performance of semiconductor ETFs and cloud computing stocks remains linked to the success of NVIDIA. Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input helps create a more knowledgeable community where we can all learn and grow together in the world of investing. Stay up to date with the latest market trends, insights, and key updates by subscribing to Investing Tutorial. We're here to help you make smarter investment decisions and stay ahead of the curve.
Quickly here to NVIDIA, which is down almost 5% again. What do you attribute its recent weakness to, Ben?
Well, there was a lot of noise over the weekend about CoWoS, which is their packaging technology for the new Blackwell, being cut by NVIDIA. I actually think it's noise. I actually think that they're continuing to make progress there that may actually even help margins by the second half. But the noise over the weekend was a fever pitch, and that could be impacting the stock. There's also just a broader sell-off in semis and a negative halo over it due to the administration, worries over bans of chips, worries over more tariffs, worries over China retaliating, worries over the AI diffusion rule that Biden put into place being kept. And that rule bothers me probably the most of all of them. And so until all those are lifted, semi is going to be tough. The AI semi is going to be tough. But hopefully President Trump, sees that we need the stock market to work, and we need to be a leader in AI semis and get this going again.
Yeah, we'll see.
But obviously, one of the reasons for the weakness in the market at the index level specifically is NVIDIA, which is down again. Take a look at NVIDIA today.
Yeah.
It can't get any footing from earnings. It's been down about 5% today. It's off more than 11% year to date. It is the big issue, along with momentum. You're out of it completely now.
I am out.
When did you sell the rest of it?
I sold the rest of it when they reported earnings. So it's I didn't get it on the other swing of the earnings because it went into the green. I sold it when it started to go into the red. Look, there are a few issues with NVIDIA in my view. One of them being that with Apple, for example, you're starting to see them make their own chip. And others all have plans to. It's got competition. Also, it's been reported that that China is buying the NVIDIA chip through other countries. So I think that's an issue for them. And then finally, when you take a look at what tariffs could do, and Taiwan Semi has been called out for tariffs, that stock's really gotten hit. It's not reflected here, but they'll pick up the excess capacity.
Well, they're about to announce, we think, according to the Wall Street Journal, a $100 billion investment in the U.S., something you may hear more about as the afternoon progresses.
Right. Most of which, frankly, has been announced already. But the point on NVIDIA is that a lot of people didn't even know why they owned it. They owned it for the momentum. And they owned it because they didn't want to sell it because of taxes. And I think part of the hit to technology overall is that those that came into the year saying, okay, I'm going to wait to sell until the next year, 25, and hopefully pay lower taxes or just delay my taxes for a period. They said, you know what, I can't hold on anymore. So it's a combination of factors that hit that in tech. But it's really notable that the only 2 of the 12 sectors that are down year to date in the S&P are information technology, which is tech, and
tariffs give NVIDIA an additional layer to manage, and Dan Ives concurs that the market's current subsidizing may just be a buying springboard for investors. The CFO's vague responses during the conference call on tariff handling left much to be desired, but all is not lost. As NVIDIA's journey progresses, Ives thinks that these export restrictions won't be a limiting factor, and that the tariffs are just scare tactics. He also thinks that short-term supply chain disruptions will be minimal for the tech company, and that the next ACT holds promise for potential growth and recovery. Investors may adopt Monster's unwavering optimism and see the current dip as a profitable entry point. What do you think of Dan Ives and Monster's predictions? When combined with rising AI needs, NVIDIA's trajectory toward imposing gains by 2026 remains plausible for those scrutinizing NVIDIA. It becomes an issue of faith in innovation and AI's promise. Is it wiser to purchase NVIDIA, or should one exercise caution in light of the volatility? Finally, click on the next movie on your screen to discover what companies like NVIDIA have been up to lately. I hope to see you there.